The rain-slicked streets of Chicago gleamed under the sodium glow of street lamps, the kind of night where the wind off Lake Michigan carried the faint tang of diesel and wet asphalt. In the heart of the Loop, hidden behind the unassuming facade of a corner trattoria called Nonna's, the air hummed with the sizzle of garlic and olive oil and the low murmur of late-night patrons. It wasn't the flashiest spot in town, far from the velvet-roped clubs where the elite paraded their diamonds, but it drew a certain crowd, the kind who valued discretion over dazzle, who paid in cash and never lingered too long. Luca Moretti nursed a glass of Chianti at a corner booth, his broad shoulders casting a shadow over the worn leather menu. At 38, he was the unchallenged king of the city's shadowed underbelly, his empire built on shipping routes that skirted the law and alliances forged in backroom deals. But Luca had a rule, etched into his code like a scar. He despised the fake, elegant women who flocked to men like him, the ones with designer gowns that screamed rented sophistication, their laughter too polished, their eyes calculating the cut of his suit. He'd seen too many betrayals wrapped in silk, wives of rivals who'd whispered secrets for a taste of power, socialites who'd sold out for a penthouse view. No, Luca preferred the raw edges of life, the authenticity that couldn't be bought. His security detail, 2 men in dark overcoats, flanked the entrance, their eyes scanning the room like hawks. Tonight was supposed to be routine, a meeting with a dockside contact to smooth over a delayed shipment of electronics that were anything but. But the contact was late, and Luca's patience thinned with every tick of the antique clock on the wall. From the open kitchen door, a burst of steam carried the aroma of fresh basil and simmering tomatoes. Luca's gaze drifted there, drawn by the clatter of pots and a voice that cut through the din. Warm, unhurried, laced with a faint Italian accent that spoke of old-world roots, not imported glamour. Easy on the salt, Marco. Nonna's recipe calls for a pinch, not a storm. She was bent over a stainless steel counter, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail that had escaped a few curls, sleeves rolled up on a simple white blouse stained with flour. Sophia Rossi, 26 and utterly unpretentious, wielded a wooden spoon like a conductor's baton. She'd immigrated from a small village near Naples 5 years ago, chasing dreams of her own place someday. But for now, she poured her soul into Nonna's, the family spot her aunt had left her. No makeup, no heels, just capable hands kneading dough for handmade pasta, her laughter genuine as she bantered with the line cook. Luca watched, transfixed. In a world of polished facades, she was a revelation. Elbows deep in semolina, oblivious to the eyes on her. When she straightened, wiping her brow with the back of her hand, their gazes locked through the pass-through window. Her brown eyes widened slightly, not in fear or flirtation, but simple acknowledgement, a nod to the man who'd been staring. She turned back to her work, but something shifted in Luca's chest, a pull he couldn't name. It wasn't lust. It was recognition. Real. Unfiltered. The contact finally arrived, sliding into the booth with a greasy smile and a folder of manifests. Luca, sorry for the delay. Storm held up the trucks from the warehouse district. Luca barely heard him, his mind replaying the curve of her smile as she plated a dish of spaghetti alle vongole for a waiting server. They talked logistics, guard rotations at the docks, arrival crew sniffing around the manifests, but Luca's responses were clipped, his attention fracturing. When the meeting wrapped, he signaled his men and stood, but instead of heading out, he found himself at the kitchen threshold. "Signorina," he said, his voice low, carrying the gravel of too many late nights. "That pasta, your hands on it, smells like home." Sophia glanced up, surprised but not flustered, as she dusted flour from her apron. The kitchen heat flushed her cheeks, and the scent of herbs clung to her like a signature. Home? Depends on where that's for you. This is Nonna's aglio e olio, simple but it bites back if you rush it. He chuckled, a rare sound that drew glances from the staff. "Luca Moretti. And you?" "Sophia. Just Sophia." She extended a hand, calloused from hours of chopping and rolling, not manicured for show. Their handshake lingered a beat too long, her grip firm, eyes steady. No games, no coy glances, just two people in a steamy kitchen, the world outside fading to a hum. As Luca released her hand, his phone buzzed, a burner from his second-in-command. "Boss, we've got eyes on a tail from the east side. Rossi crew, maybe. They clocked your car pulling up." Luca's jaw tightened, the warmth of the moment cooling like rain on hot pavement. Rivals had been testing his borders lately, ever since a botched deal exposed a ledger of discreet shipments. But here, with her, the threat felt distant. "Appreciate the warning," he murmured into the phone, then pocketed it. Sophia noticed the shift, the way his posture straightened like a man slipping back into armor. "Everything all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "More like heard one." He hesitated, then pulled a card from his wallet. Plain black, no title, just a number. "Dinner tomorrow, not here. Somewhere quiet. Let me show you what real Italian tastes like, away from the chaos." She arched a brow, wiping her hands on a towel, the card dangling between her fingers. Curiosity flickered in her eyes, mingled with caution. Why him? A stranger with the bearing of someone who commanded rooms without raising his voice. But there was something in his gaze. Hunger, not for her body, but for the simplicity she embodied. And in her line of work, a free meal wasn't something to scoff at, especially with rent looming and whispers of the Trattoria's shaky finances. Quiet. Huh? In this city? Sophia tucked the card into her pocket, a small smile playing on her lips. "All right, Luca Moretti, but if it's fancy, I'm wearing this apron." He grinned, stepping back as the dinner rush swelled. Wouldn't have it any other way. Outside, the rain picked up, drumming against the awning as Luca's driver pulled the black SUV to the curb. His men scanned the alley, radios crackling softly. But as he slid into the leather seat, Luca's thoughts weren't on the tail or the ledgers. They were on her, flour-dusted and real, and the nagging question of why a woman like that would catch the eye of a man who'd sworn off illusions. Little did he know, the real shadows were just beginning to close in. Who had tipped off the Rossi crew about his visit to Nonna's? And what did they want with a simple pasta maker? The next evening, the Chicago skyline pierced the twilight like jagged teeth, the loop's neon veins pulsing against a bruised sky. Sophia Rossi stood outside Nonna's, the Trattoria's faded sign creaking in the breeze off the river. She'd changed out of her work clothes into a simple black dress. Nothing fancy, just something that hugged her curves without apology, paired with sensible flats that had seen better days. No jewelry, no pretense. The card Luca had given her burned in her pocket all night, a quiet temptation amid the clatter of closing up. Rent was due, sure, but it was more than that. Curiosity, sharp as a knife's edge, had won out. Who was this man who looked at her like she was the first honest thing he'd seen in years? A sleek black town car pulled up precisely at 7, its tinted windows reflecting the streetlights like obsidian. The driver, a stocky man with a buzz cut and an earpiece, nodded without a word and held the door. Sophia hesitated, glancing back at the Trattoria's warm glow. Marco, the line cook, had raised an eyebrow when she mentioned the dinner. "Be careful, Sophia. That one's got eyes like a fox in the henhouse." But she waved it off. She'd handled worse than a smooth talker in her 5 years scraping by in this city. Inside, the leather seats smelled of polish and faint cigar smoke, cool against her skin. No partition separated her from the driver, but he didn't speak, just merged into traffic with the ease of someone who'd navigated these streets 1,000 times. The radio hummed low, dispatch chatter, clipped and coded. Echo too clear on Michigan Avenue, no tails. Sophia's pulse quickened. Tails? She leaned forward. "Where are we headed?" "Private spot on the Gold Coast. the driver replied, eyes flicking to the rear view. Mr. Moretti's treat. Won't take long. The Gold Coast unfolded in a blur of high-rises and manicured parks, the kind of neighborhood where doormen in crisp uniforms guarded secrets behind brass plaques. But as they turned onto a side street lined with shuttered galleries, Sophia spotted it, a sedan idling at the corner, its plate half obscured by shadow. The driver tensed, his hand drifting to the console. Just a local, he muttered, but accelerated smoothly, weaving through an alley that smelled of garbage and rain-damp brick. By the time they arrived at the restaurant, a discreet bistro called Il Rifugio, tucked into a brownstone with no sign, Sophia's unease had settled like fog. The entrance was unmarked, guarded by a single man in a tailored suit, who scanned her with a handheld device before waving them through. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of truffles and aged balsamic, candlelight flickering off exposed brick walls. No hostess, no menu. Just a private table in the back, set for two under a chandelier that cast golden pools on the linen. Luca rose as she approached, his dark suit unbuttoned at the collar, revealing a sliver of tanned skin. No tie, no flash, just power, coiled and quiet. Sophia, you came. His voice was warm gravel, eyes tracing her without the leer she'd half expected. Instead, there was that pull again, like he was memorizing the way her hair fell loose over one shoulder. Traffic was light, she said, sliding into the chair. A waiter materialized with a bottle of Barolo, pouring without a word. This place, it's like a secret. No wonder you picked it. He leaned back, the candlelight sharpening the lines of his jaw. Secrets keep things honest. In my line, you learn that quick. They talked easy at first. Her village in Naples, the way Nonna's recipes carried the salt of the Tyrrhenian Sea. His vague stories of family shipments across the lakes, skirting details like fog around a pier. But Luca watched her, really watched, the way her hands gestured with the same rhythm as when she rolled dough. You don't play games, he said finally, swirling his wine. Most women I meet, they dress up the truth. You're pasta and basil, straightforward. Sophia laughed, a soft sound that cut the tension. Flattery with food metaphors? You're smoother than I thought. But yeah, life's too short for fakes. Grew up watching my aunt build nonas from nothing. No loans, no shortcuts. Just hard work and real flavors. She paused, fork midway to her mouth, the risotto creamy and perfect. What about you, Luca? What's a man like you doing inviting a pasta girl to a place like this? His smile faded at the edges, replaced by something shadowed. Looking for real, I guess. My world's full of polished lies, deals that sour, people who smile while they stab. He set his glass down, the clink echoing softly. Outside, through the frosted window, headlights swept the street, gone in a blink. Luca's posture shifted, alert. Ever feel like eyes are on you? She followed his gaze, a chill prickling her arms despite the room's warmth. In the car, your driver mentioned tails. What's that about? Business, he said curtly, but his eyes scanned the room, lingering on the waiter's retreat. Under the table, his foot tapped, a subtle tell, like a guard rotation out of sync. Rivals testing fences. Nothing you need to worry over. But Sophia did worry. As the meal wound down, espresso strong enough to wake the dead, her phone buzzed in her purse. A text from Marco. Heard from a regular, cops sniffing around Nonna's permits. Something about old manifests from the docks. You okay? Her stomach twisted. Permits? Nonna's had always paid its dues, but whispers of Luca's shipments echoed in her mind. Coincidence? Luca noticed her frown. Problem? Just work. She pocketed the phone, but the seed of doubt took root. As they stepped out, his arm brushed hers, protective, not possessive, the night air crisp with the distant hum of the L train. His driver waited, engine idling, but Luca paused at the curb, scanning the alley. A figure melted into the shadows across the street, too deliberate to be a passerby. "Get in," he murmured, hand at her elbow. The car pulled away smoothly, but Sophia caught a glimpse in the side mirror. That same sedan from earlier, now trailing at a distance, its headlights dimmed. Luca's phone vibrated. He answered in low Italian, voice edged with steel. "Double the watch on the trattoria, and pull the ledger from the warehouse. Check for leaks." He hung up, meeting her eyes. "Sophia, this dinner, it's not just pasta. Stay clear of the edges, yeah?" She nodded, heart pounding against her ribs, the city's lights blurring into streaks. What had she stepped into? And why did the man beside her, with his code of raw honesty, suddenly feel like both shield and storm? As the car merged onto the highway, the trailer's engine faded, but not before Sophia wondered if the real pursuit had just begun. The town car's tires hummed over the rain-slicked asphalt of Lakeshore Drive, the Chicago skyline a glittering fortress on one side, the dark expanse of the lake swallowing the horizon on the other. Sophia gripped the edge of the leather seat, her black dress suddenly feeling too thin against the chill seeping through the vents. Luca sat beside her, his presence a solid wall of quiet intensity, one hand resting on his knee while the other thumbed the edge of his phone. The driver, still nameless, still silent, kept the speed steady, but his eyes flicked to the mirrors every few seconds, tracking the flow of traffic like a chess player scanning for traps. "That sedan," Sophia said finally, her voice cutting the low thrum of the engine. "It's been behind us since the restaurant. Not a coincidence, is it?" Luca's gaze met hers, steady but shadowed, the passing streetlights carving hollows under his eyes. "No. Rossi crew, old rivals from the East Side docks. They've been poking at my shipments, trying to find a weak seam." He paused, the scent of espresso lingering on his breath, mixing with the faint leather polish of the interior. "Didn't mean to drag you into this. Dinner was supposed to be a clean break from it all." She shifted, crossing her arms to ward off the unease coiling in her gut. The city blurred past. Joggers under sodium lamps, the distant wail of a siren echoing off high-rises. "Clean break? In Chicago? Your world's bleeding into mine, Luca." Marco texted, cops asking about Nona's permits. "Old dock manifests," he said. "We don't even ship anything but flour sacks and wine crates." His jaw tightened, a muscle ticking like a faulty lock. "Manifests. Yeah, that rings bells. A few years back, my routes overlapped with some legitimate hauls to spots like your aunt's supplier. If someone's digging, they might think Nona's is a front." He leaned forward, tapping the driver's shoulder. "Lose them at the next light. Cut through the warehouse district." The driver nodded, accelerating into a sharp turn that pressed Sophia back into the seat. The sedan mirrored them, its headlights a persistent glow in the side mirror. Heart pounding, she watched as they veered off the drive, plunging into the industrial sprawl south of the loop. Chain-link fences rattled in the wind. Warehouses loomed like silent giants, their corrugated metal walls dripping with condensation. The air through the cracked window carried the brine of the river and the oily tang of idling trucks. "Why me?" Sophia asked, turning to him as the car bounced over potholes. "You could have any woman, elegant, put together, but you pick the one covered in pasta flour. What's the angle?" Luca's laugh was low, almost reluctant, rumbling like thunder over the lake. "Angle. That's what I hate about my life. Everyone's got one. You're not calculating the play. Last night in the kitchen, you didn't bat an eye at who I was, just handed me that card like it was nothing." His hand brushed hers, brief and electric, calluses rough against her skin. "I've lost people to the fakes, the ones who smile while they sell you out for a better deal. My code: protect what's real, family, loyalty, no innocence in the crossfire." She pulled back slightly, but not before feeling the warmth linger. The car swerved into a narrow alley, gravel crunching under the tires, the sedan's lights flaring as it hesitated at the entrance. And Nona's? Is that real to you now? More than you know. Luca's phone buzzed again, the screen lighting his face in harsh blue. He glanced at it, a text from his second-in-command. Ledger check. Discrepancy in Rossi warehouse logs. Your contact from the docks? Compromised. His expression darkened, fingers tightening around the device. The tale's not random. Someone tipped them about tonight. Il Refugio's got ears. The driver gunned the engine, bursting onto a side street lined with shuttered loading docks. Floodlights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows that danced like watchful figures. Sophia's mind raced. Marco's text, the permits, Luca's shipments. It all tangled like over-kneaded dough, inconsistencies pulling at the edges. If your world's this close, maybe I should walk away, before it sticks. He turned to her, eyes intense in the dim cabin. Walk, and you're a target. Stay, and I've got your back. The words hung heavy, laced with the possessiveness of a man who'd built an empire on vows. Outside, the sedan peeled off, deterred by a sudden blockade of delivery vans. Luca's men, she realized, coordinating via earpieces. The car slowed near Nona's back alley, the trattoria's neon sign, a faint beacon through the mist. They slipped out into the cool night, the alley smelling of damp brick and lingering garlic from the dinner shift. Luca scanned the shadows, his hand hovering near her waist, not grabbing, but guiding. The back door creaked open under Sophia's key, the lock feeling looser than she remembered, as if someone had jimmied it recently. Inside, the kitchen was dim, pots stacked like sentinels, the air still warm from the ovens. But something was off. A drawer ajar, papers scattered on the counter, old invoices from the dockside supplier, manifests yellowed with age. Sophia knelt, rifling through them, her fingers brushing a sticky residue that smelled faintly of cheap cologne, not the kitchen's usual flour dust. These were filed away. Someone's been here. One sheet caught her eye, a faded entry for electronics crates, rerouted to Nona's address years ago, initialed by a name she didn't recognize, Rossi. Luca crouched beside her, his breath steady against the back of her neck. That's my old route. Your aunt must have taken a side gig for cash flow. Harmless then, but now. He trailed off, pulling out his phone to snap photos. The hum of a distant generator outside vibrated through the walls, and for a moment, the only sound was their breathing, synced in the tension. A knock echoed from the front. Sharp, insistent. Luca straightened, signaling silence, his body shielding hers instinctively. Through the pass-through, they saw Marco's face pressed to the glass, rain streaking his jacket. Sophia? You in there? Lights are flickering, powers glitchy from the storm. Relief washed over her, but Luca's eyes narrowed. Storm? No forecast for that tonight. He moved to the window, peering out. Across the street, under the awning of a pawn shop, a figure lingered, phone to ear, coat collar up. Behavioral tell. Too still, scanning the alley like a guard out of rotation. As Marco entered, shaking off water, Luca pocketed the photos. We need to talk about these manifests and whoever's watching your door. Sophia nodded, the weight of his world settling on her shoulders, but beneath it, a spark. Trust, fragile as fresh pasta, binding them tighter. But as the rain began to patter against the windows, blurring the view of the watcher outside, Sophia wondered who had the key to Nona's back door, and what secrets from the docks were about to boil over. If you're enjoying this story so far, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The rain came down in sheets now, drumming against the trattoria's roof like impatient fingers, turning the alley into a slick mirror of sodium lights and blurred shadows. Inside Nona's kitchen, The air hung heavy with the residue of garlic and tension, the fluorescent bulb overhead flickering erratically as if echoing the storm's false rhythm. Sophia straightened from the scattered invoices, her fingers still smudged with the faint, oily residue from the papers. Marco hovered in the doorway, his jacket dripping onto the tiled floor, eyes darting between her and Luca, the stranger whose presence filled the room like smoke from a hidden fire. "Power's dipping all over the block," Marco said, his voice rough from the cold, wiping rain from his brow. "Generator kicked in at the diner next door, but it's spotty. You two all right?" "Saw the car pull up. Fancy ride for closing time." Sophia forced a nod, tucking the manifests under her arm, the yellowed paper crinkling like a warning. "Fine, just sorting some old stock lists. Luca here's helping out." She shot him a glance, the weight of their shared discovery pressing between them. His eyes, dark and unreadable, scanned Marco with the precision of a man assessing threats, subtle tells like the cook's averted gaze, the way his hands fidgeted with his keys. Luca stepped forward, extending a hand that Marco accepted with a firm grip, though his expression tightened at the calluses on the other man's palm, marks of labor, not leisure. Luca Moretti, friend of the family, you could say. "These manifests, mind if I take a look?" might explain the cop sniffing around. Marco hesitated, glancing at Sophia for cue. The kitchen fan whirred faintly, stirring the steam from a forgotten pot on the stove, carrying the comforting scent of basil that now felt out of place amid the intrusion. "Cops?" "Yeah, they poked at the permits this afternoon. Asked about deliveries from the docks, old crates that never made it to the menu. Thought it was nothing. Tax audit or some bullshit." He shrugged, but his shoulders stayed rigid, the behavioral slip of a man holding back. Sophia spread the papers on the counter, the light catching faded ink. Entries for miscellaneous goods dated 5 years back, rerouted through a warehouse on the Calumet River. One line stood out, a shipment initialed RM, quantity obscured, but value high enough to raise eyebrows. Rossi. Her aunt's maiden name, but the connection twisted like a knife. Aunt Elena handled suppliers back then. She never mentioned side jobs. "If this ties to your roots, Luca." He leaned in, his shoulder brushing hers, the warmth cutting through the chill seeping from the drafty back door. "It does. Those crates were mine. Cover for tech parts. Nothing flashy. Your aunt probably stored them in the basement for a cut. Kept the books clean. Harmless until someone digs." His voice dropped, gravelly under the rain's patter. "But that residue on the papers, not flour. Cologne. Cheap. Like the kind dock workers wear to mask fish gut. Someone's been rooting here tonight." Marco's eyes widened, stepping back toward the pass-through. "I locked up at 10. Keys only with me and Sophia." But even as he said it, doubt flickered. His keychain jingled too loudly in the quiet, a nervous tick. Outside, the alley light buzzed, casting erratic shadows through the rain-streaked window. Luca moved to the glass, parting the blinds with 2 fingers. The watcher was gone, swallowed by the downpour, but the pawnshop awning across the street dripped steadily, a puddle forming like spilled ink. No storm forecast, Luca's earlier doubt confirmed by the Clear app on his phone, pulled from his pocket. This rain's no accident. Sprinklers from the warehouse district. Maybe rerouted through city pipes. Diversion tactic. Keeps eyes off the real play. Sophia's pulse thrummed, the manifests burning in her hand like contraband. Autonomy clashed with the pull of his world. Luca's code, that unyielding vow to shield the real from the rot, tempted her like the promise of protection. But independence, known as legacy, built on honest sweat, screamed to pull away. "If rivals are this close, why stick around? You drag me into your shipments, now my place is compromised. What's the cost to me?" Luca turned, his gaze locking on hers, intense as the storm's edge. "Cost? Walking away makes you bait. They see you with me, your leverage. Stay, And we end this, together. Possessiveness edged his tone, not domineering but fierce, born from losses etched in his past. A brother sold out by a polished informant, a deal soured by silk-wrapped lies. He hated the fakes for good reason. She was the antidote, raw and vital. Marco cleared his throat, breaking the moment. I'll check the basement, see if anything's missing down there. He slipped toward the stairs, but Luca's hand shot out, stopping him. Wait. Phone out. Call your guy at the docks. Ask about Rossi warehouse access tonight. Guard rotations every 2 hours. If it's off, we've got a leak. Marco nodded, dialing as he descended, his footsteps echoing hollowly. Alone in the kitchen, Sophia faced Luca, the air thick with unspoken stakes. Your code, protect innocence. Am I one now? Or just pasta in your empire? You're both, he murmured, stepping closer, the scent of rain on his coat mingling with her basil-stained apron from earlier. His hand cupped her elbow, gentle but anchoring. And more, from the first sight. Flour on your hands, no mask. I fell then. Let me prove it's real. The lights flickered again, plunging the room into momentary shadow, the generator's hum stuttering like a jammed lock. Sophia's breath caught as Luca pulled her toward the back door, peering into the alley. A vehicle idled at the far end, low-slung, plates muddied by rain, engine a soft growl over the downpour. Not the sedan, but close enough. A burner plate, swapped for evasion. Marco! Luca called, voice sharp. Footsteps pounded up from below. We've got company. Secure the front. Call my detail. He turned to Sophia, eyes fierce. Trust me. We move now, or they close in. She nodded, heart racing, the manifest clutched like a lifeline. As they slipped into the alley, rain soaking through her dress, the chill bit deep. But Luca's arm around her waist was steady, a vow in motion. The vehicle revved, headlights cutting the dark, and Sophia wondered. Was the leak in the manifest Marco's secret? Or had Luca's past losses drawn her into a trap neither could escape? The downpour masked their footsteps as they dashed toward his waiting SUV. But in the rear view as it peeled away, Sophia glimpsed a figure emerging from the shadows, phone raised, snapping a photo that sealed their fates. The SUV's wipers slashed rhythmically against the relentless rain, turning the windshield into a blurred veil over the Chicago night. Sophia huddled in the back seat, her black dress clinging cold and heavy to her skin, the manifests tucked into her purse like smuggled contraband. Luca sat beside her, his coat shedding droplets onto the leather, one arm draped protectively along the seat back, close enough to shield, far enough to respect the space she needed. The driver, face set like granite, navigated the warehouse district's labyrinth of flooded streets, tires hissing over grates that spat water like geysers. The air inside carried the metallic tang of wet wool and the faint, acrid bite of exhaust seeping through the seals. That photo, Sophia said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She rubbed her arms, chasing away the chill that went deeper than the storm. Whoever it was, they got us both. Clear shot, plates, faces, everything. What's that mean for Nonna's? For me? Luca's eyes stayed on the side mirror, tracking the empty alley behind them. No immediate tales, but the city's veins were full of blind spots, tunnels under the river, side roads choked with semis. Means they're building a file. Leverage. The Rossi crew doesn't strike without proof. They leak it to cops or press, turn pressure into chaos. He pulled out his phone, the screen's glow illuminating the sharp planes of his face. A quick text to his second. Eyes on Nonna's perimeter. Pull cams from alley. Then, softer to her. We'll scrub it. My tech guys got ways. Deepfakes, plate swaps. But yeah, it tightens the noose. She leaned her head against the window, the glass cool against her temple, watching rivulets race like escaping secrets. Autonomy warred inside her. bolt back to the simple rhythm of do and do, or lean into this man whose code felt like both anchor and chain. Luca's hatred for the fake wasn't just talk. It was etched in the way he looked at her now, raw need stripped of games. But trust? That was a leap over the same docks his shipments skirted. Marco seemed off tonight. The way he hesitated about the keys, that call to the docks guy. You think he's the leak? Luca's jaw clenched, the leather creaking as he shifted. Possible. Cooks hear everything. Patrons, deliveries. If your aunt's manifest crossed my routes, he might have known. Behavioral tells. Fidgety hands, eyes on the floor. But jumping to betrayal? That's how empires crack. His phone buzzed. A reply. Cams show lone figure, east side plates. Matches Rossi burner van from earlier tale. He cursed under his breath. Italian low and heated, the sound vibrating through the cabin like a distant generator. The SUV veered onto a service road paralleling the Chicago River, the water churning black and frothy below, lit by sporadic dock lights that bobbed like wary sentinels. Barges groaned against their moorings, the air through the vents thick with diesel and the earthy rot of silt. Sophia's mind pieced the clues. The jimmied lock, the cologne residue, the unforecast rain masking a diversion. No supernatural hand, just human error, a guard rotation skipped for a bribe, institutional blind spots in city surveillance. If Marco's clean, who tipped them about dinner? Il Refugio's private? How'd they know I'd be there with you? Inside job, Luca admitted, his voice edged with the gravel of old wounds. My world's riddled with them. Lost my brother to one. Fed intel to rivals for a penthouse promise. Fake elegance, all shine and no spine. He reached for her hand, thumb tracing a gentle circle on her knuckles, the touch grounding amid the sway of the vehicle. You're the opposite. Fell for you in that kitchen, flour everywhere, no armor. Let me protect that. Sophia didn't pull away, but the push-pull twisted tighter, his possessiveness a warm cage, her independence the key she wasn't sure she wanted to turn. The riverbank unfolded, chain link topped with razor wire, warehouses hulking with sodium glow on wet concrete, the hum of security radios crackling faintly from a patrol boat slicing the current. The driver slowed at a gated lot, barcode scanner beeping approval, the barrier rising with a mechanical whine. Inside, it was a fortress of logistics, stacked containers like metallic tombs, floodlights sweeping arcs that caught rain in shimmering veils. They parked near a low-slung office trailer, its windows glowing amber against the storm. Luca's men materialized from the shadows, two in dark jackets, earpieces coiled like snakes, escorting them inside. The space smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, monitors lining one wall flickering with feeds, alley cams, dock manifests scrolling in green text, a live map dotted with blips for his fleet. His second in command, a wiry man named Vito with a scar pulling his lip, nodded curtly. Boss, got the ledger pull, discrepancy in the old Rossi warehouse, crates logged as kitchen supplies to nonnas, but weights off by 20 pounds each. Hidden compartments, likely. Sophia scanned the screen, the data a web of numbers and codes. One entry. Access log from tonight, timestamp just after closing. Guard rotation breached at 10:15, a swipe from an unauthorized fob. That's Marco's shift end. But the cologne, dock worker, you said, not him. Her ethics flared. Accusing without proof felt like betraying the family she'd built Nonna's into. Yet fear gnawed. Loyalty versus the encroaching threat, her world tilting into his. Luca paced, the trailer's floor creaking under his boots. Cross-check the fob, and pull Nonna's supplier records. See if Elena Rossi ever dealt direct with the east side. Vito tapped keys, the hum rising as data scrolled. Outside, thunder rumbled. Not natural, Sophia realized, but a staged blast from construction charges across the river, lights flickering as if the power grid buckled. Diversion again, drawing patrols away. Alarms blared softly on the monitors. A perimeter breach at the north fence. Shadows darting between containers. Luca's hand went to his side, where a concealed holster bulged subtly. Rivals testing. Infiltration play, botched escort to flush us out. He turned to her, eyes fierce. Stay here with Vito. I'll handle it. No, Sophia said, stepping forward, pulse thundering. This is my mess, too. Those manifests have my name on them now. The conflict peaked. Prudence screaming caution, ambition, for truth, for him, pushing her toward the door. He hesitated, then nodded, the possessiveness yielding to respect. Together, then. They slipped out into the rain-lashed yard, the air electric with ozone and tension, guards fanning out with radios hissing coordinates. Floodlights swung, catching a figure scrambling over a container, clad in a hooded jacket, dropping a burner phone that skittered across wet asphalt. As Luca lunged to intercept, Sophia spotted the glint. A ledger page fluttering from the intruder's pocket, ink smudged but legible. Nona's address circled, beside a scrawled note. Leverage. The girl. Her blood ran cold. Who had sent the infiltrator? And was Marco's fidgety hesitation the key to unraveling it all? Or the blade waiting to fall? The rain hammered the warehouse yard like a relentless interrogation, turning the gravel into a treacherous mire that sucked at their shoes. Floodlights swept erratic arcs across the stacked containers, their sodium glow fracturing through the downpour into blinding shards. Luca sprinted ahead, his coat flapping like a dark wing, boots splashing through puddles that mirrored the chaos above. Sophia followed close, her flat slipping on the slick concrete, heart slamming against her ribs as the intruder's hooded figure vaulted another container, the dropped ledger page sodden and trampled underfoot. The air reeked of wet metal and diesel, undercut by the sharp ozone crackle from the staged blasts echoing across the river, diversions meant to scatter guards like leaves in a gale. Stop! Luca's voice cut through the storm, gravel hard and commanding, but the figure twisted mid-leap, firing a suppressed shot that pinged off a nearby crane with a muted whine. No gore, just the whiplash of adrenaline. Sophia ducked behind a pallet of rusted chains, the metallic tang biting her tongue. Luca dove low, rolling into the shadow of a container, his men converging from the perimeter with radios hissing clipped coordinates. North fence? 2 intruders. Flank left. Sophia's breath came in ragged bursts, the cold rain plastering her hair to her face, mixing with the sting of fear. She wasn't built for this. Her world was kneading dough under warm lights, not dodging bullets in a logistics graveyard. But Luca's code pulled at her, that vow to shield the real, the innocent. It mirrored her own stubborn loyalty to Nona's, even as rivals clawed at its edges. She edged forward, spotting the ledger page caught against a grate, ink bleeding but the words, "Leverage the girl," stark against the blur. Her name, Sophia Rossi, circled like a target. Not coincidence. Organized, with logistics cold as the river's current. The intruder stumbled on a loose chain, hood slipping to reveal a gaunt face. Mid-30s, scarred jaw, eyes wild with the cornered rat's desperation. Not Marco. This was dockside muscle, cheap cologne clinging even through the rain, the same scent from the kitchen papers. Luca tackled him against a container wall, the impact thudding like a dropped crate, fists connecting in controlled bursts, enough to subdue, not destroy. "Who sent you?" Luca growled, knee-pinning the man's chest, rain streaming down his face like sweat. "The manifests, talk, or your crew gets the full ledger." The man spat blood-tinged water, wheezing. "Rossi, not your aunt's ghost. East Side boss, wants the roots back. Your girl's the key. Saw her at the trattoria. Easy mark." His laugh was bitter, cut short by Vito's arrival, zip ties snapping into place. Guards hauled him toward the trailer, but not before Sophia stepped into the light, manifests clutched in her fist. "You broke into Nonna's for this?" she demanded, voice steady despite the quake in her legs. The man's eyes flicked to her, recognition, then contempt. Pasta girl thinks she's out? Your aunt's crates hit our guns once. Now you're collateral. Luca pulled her back as the prisoner was dragged away, his hand firm on her arm, the touch a tether in the storm's fury. The yard's generators hummed louder, lights stabilizing as the diversions faded, patrol boats' searchlights now sweeping the river like accusatory fingers. Inside the trailer, the air was thick with the buzz of monitors and drying rain on heated vents. Vito patched the intruder's phone, a burner, of course, revealing texts. Timestamps matching the tale from Il Refugio, a photo of her and Luca at the restaurant's curb. Compromised access code from the bistro's back entrance, likely a waiter turned snitch for a payout. Sophia paced the cramped space, the coffee-stained table littered with printouts, shipping logs cross-referenced to Nonna's old invoices, weights off by those suspicious 20 pounds, compartments for contraband, not just kitchen supplies. Human error had buried it for years, a guard's overlooked rotation, a ledger entry fudged for quick cash, but rivals had unearthed it, piecing the puzzle with surveillance cams and burner relays. This ties back to Elena, she murmured, tracing her aunt's faded signature. She needed money after Nono died, rent, expansions, but using my name now? It's a noose. Luca watched her, the possessiveness in his stance softening to something deeper, etched with the scars of his losses. His brother's betrayal had taught him suspicion's cost, but Sophia's fire, her refusal to crumble, challenged it. It's real leverage because of us. They see you as my weakness, the one thing I won't fake. He stepped closer, the trailer's single bulb casting his shadow long across the floor. My code's simple, no innocence pay, but you're not innocent anymore. You're in it, with me. The conflict tore at her. Autonomy screaming to sever ties, to reclaim the trattoria's simple code of fresh ingredients and honest plates, versus the pull of his world, where loyalty forged in fire outshone gold. Fear of betrayal gnawed. Marco's hesitation replayed in her mind, his keys jingling like a false alarm. And if the leak's closer? Marco knew about those old deliveries. What if he's not just fidgety? What if he's bought? Luca's phone vibrated. Vito's update. Doc's access fob traced to a proxy card, issued to a line cook at Nonna's supplier. Marco's cousin. The room tilted, institutional limits exposed. A family tie overlooked in the shuffle of immigrant networks. Betrayal, not malice, but pressure from debts or threats. Sophia's stomach knotted. Prudence urged calling Marco out, but trust in her makeshift family held her back. Outside, the rain eased to a drizzle, the yard's puddles reflecting the first hints of dawn over the river. Luca's men secured the perimeter, a convoy of unmarked vans rumbling in for extraction, tires on wet asphalt, engines a low growl promising safe passage to a penthouse safehouse on the Gold Coast. We move now, Luca said, his hand at the small of her back, guiding without demanding. Confront Marco at dawn. Get the truth. But tonight, you're under my roof. No arguments. Sophia met his gaze, the warmth of his touch cutting the chill, a pledge forming in the silence. The journey into his world had escalated, from kitchen glances to warehouse chases, but in the vulnerability, trust bloomed, fragile as a first snowfall. As the SUV convoy pulled out, weaving through the district's tunnels under the river's hum, she leaned into him slightly, the leather seats creaking. Victory would cost exposure, perhaps Marco's loyalty shattered, but the treasure emerging was clearer. Not power, but this bond, tested and true. Yet as they emerged onto the sun-tipped streets, a text pinged on Vito's relayed line. Trattoria cams. Marco meeting Eastside contact, now. Was the cook the turncoat, or bait in a larger trap closing on them all? If this tale already has you hooked, hit the like button. It helps us bring more hidden stories to light. The convoy snaked through the awakening streets of Chicago, the first rays of dawn gilding the high rises like reluctant spotlights on a stage set for reckoning. Sophia rode in the lead SUV, the leather seats still damp from the night's downpour, her body wedged between Luca and the door, close enough for his steady presence to anchor her, distant enough to breathe through the storm of doubt. The river's murmur faded behind them, replaced by the urban hum. Delivery trucks rumbling to life. The distant clatter of the L train bridging the gap between shadows and light. Vito's relayed text burned in her mind, forwarded to Luca's secure line. Marco at Nonna's, shadowed by an East Side contact. Betrayal or bait? The question coiled like smoke, blurring the line between loyalty and fear. Luca's thumb traced idle patterns on his knee, his face a mask of controlled fury, the scar along his jaw tightening with each passing block. "We hit the trattoria first," he said, voice low, the gravel edged with the weight of decisions that could shatter alliances. "No guns drawn. Talk him down if he's clean. If not..." He trailed off, eyes flicking to her, the possessiveness there tempered by a rare vulnerability. His code demanded restraint. No innocence harmed. But Marco's potential turn twisted that vow, echoing the brother he'd lost to a similar knife in the back. Sophia nodded, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse where the manifests hid, the paper now creased and heavy as a confession. The Gold Coast penthouse loomed ahead, a sleek tower of glass and steel piercing the skyline, its lobby guarded by discreet men in suits who scanned the convoy with retinal devices, tech as everyday as burner phones in his world. But they bypassed it, veering south toward the loop, the sun climbing higher, casting long shadows that danced like elusive tails across the asphalt. "If Marco's the leak, it explains the jimmied lock, the residue," she murmured, the words tasting bitter against the faint salt of dried rain on her lips. "His cousin at the docks, family pressure, maybe debts from the supplier gigs. But Nonna's was our code, no shortcuts. He knew that." The SUV pulled into Nonna's alley, the trattoria's faded sign catching the light like a weary sentinel, the air already warming with the promise of another day's bustle. No rain now, just the crisp bite of morning dew on the dumpsters, mingled with the faint, lingering garlic from last night's close. Luca's men fanned out, two at the front, Vito covering the rear, their earpieces crackling soft updates. Perimeter clear, no vehicles inbound. Sophia's key turned in the lock with a familiar click, but her hand hesitated on the door, autonomy clashing with the pull of Luca's world. Independence had built her life here, kneading pasta under these lights, but suspicion eroded it like water on stone. Inside, the kitchen gleamed under the fluorescence, counters wiped clean, but the air thick with unspoken tension, the hum of the fridge, the drip of a faucet like a metronome counting down. Marco stood at the pass-through, back to them, phone pressed to his ear, his broad shoulders hunched in a posture that screamed cornered. The scent of fresh coffee brewed on the ancient percolator cut the stale night, but his voice, low, urgent Italian, carried the edge of desperation. "Yeah, the crates are logged, but the girl's with him now. Moretti's got eyes everywhere." Sophia's blood iced, the door creaking shut behind them. Luca's hand shot to her wrist, pulling her into shadow, his breath warm against her ear. "Easy. Let him finish." But his body tensed, a coiled spring ready to unleash. The conflict raw, his hatred for betrayal warring with the chance for redemption, prudence demanding proof over impulse. Marco turned, face paling as he spotted them, the phone slipping from his grip to clatter on the counter. "Sophia, boss, you're back early. Thought you'd hole up till noon." His eyes darted, subtle tell, the averted gaze, the keys jingling in his pocket like a nervous chime. No cologne now, just sweat and the faint brine of fear, but the behavioral slip confirmed it. He'd been the proxy, the family tie feeding scraps to the east side for a payout to cover gambling debts, institutional blind spots in the city's underbelly letting it fester unchecked. "Early enough," Luca said, stepping forward, his voice a controlled rumble that filled the space like thunder in a bottle. "East side contact? Care to explain the call? Or the fob swipe at the warehouse?" He didn't advance aggressively, code holding him back, but the weight of his presence pinned Marco like a guard rotation frozen in place. Marco's shoulders sagged, hands raising in surrender, the fight draining like steam from a cooling pot. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Cousin at the docks. Rossi Crew leaned on him after the old manifest surfaced. Said if I didn't pass the logs, they'd hit the family back home in Naples. Your dinner, the tail. Just recon. No harm meant. Lies cracked under scrutiny. The timestamps on his phone, pulled by Vito in seconds, showed texts coordinating the intruder's drop, the photo from the alley sealing it. Human error, pressure from rivals' logistics, burner relays masking origins, a compromised supplier ledger exposing the vein. Sophia stepped up, heart aching with the betrayal's sting, loyalty to her aunt's legacy fracturing under the weight. "Nona's isn't a front, Marco. We built this real. No fakes. No debts dragging us down." Her voice cracked, independence flaring into anger. But beneath it, the push-pull with Luca. His world offered protection, a code that mirrored her ethics, yet at the cost of her untainted ground. Luca nodded to Vito, who cuffed Marco gently. Extraction, not violence, escorting him toward the back door where a van idled, its engine a soft purr. "You'll talk full to my guys. Debts cleared, family safe, if you give the routes clean." Possessiveness flickered in his glance at Sophia, but it yielded to respect, the bond between them forging stronger in the revelation's fire. No easy win. Marco's turn exposed fractures in Luca's empire, a rival faction closer than thought, their shipping manifests now a map to retaliation. As the van pulled away, the alley empty save for the rising sun warming the bricks, Sophia turned to Luca, the kitchen's familiar scents wrapping around them like a fragile truce. "It's organized. East Side boss pulling strings. The crates, the photo. They're not done." Outside, a distant horn blared from the docks, the river's current carrying whispers of the next move. Luca pulled her close, his arm a steady barrier against the encroaching dawn, the warmth of his chest cutting the chill of loss. "We ended at the warehouse. Confront the boss. Burn the ledgers. But you're mine now, Sophia. Real. Through this." Trust solidified, a pledge unspoken, but as they locked the door behind them, a burner buzzed in Vito's pocket. Coordinates for a meet, East Side trap disguised as parlay. Was Marco's confession the full truth, or the bait luring them into the river's depths? The sun climbed higher over Chicago's industrial sprawl, turning the Calumet River into a ribbon of molten silver flanked by rusting silos and the skeletal arms of loading cranes. The convoy, 3 unmarked SUVs, black as the undercurrents they navigated, wove through the warehouse district's veins, tires humming over cracked asphalt still pocked with last night's puddles. Sophia sat rigid in the lead vehicle, the manifests folded in her lap like a map to absolution, her simple dress rumpled from the night's trials, carrying the faint scent of rain and basil from Nona's kitchen. Luca's hand rested on the gear shift, knuckles white, his dark eyes fixed on the road ahead, the weight of his code pressing like the humid air through the vents. Vito's burner phone lay on the dash, its screen glowing with the East Side coordinates. A derelict warehouse on the river's bend, labeled as Parley, but reeking of trap. "Boss, it's a setup," Vito said from the passenger seat, his scar twisting as he scrolled the metadata. Signal bounce from a relay tower, Rossi Crew's masking it as neutral ground. Guards minimal on cams, but access codes match their old manifests. Marco's tip-off was partial. They're waiting with the full ledger inside. Luca's jaw set, the leather creaking as he accelerated, the river's brine seeping in, sharp and unforgiving. "They want the routes, my brother's old paths, the ones they stole after he fell. No innocence, but this ends today. His glance slid to Sophia, fierce with the possessiveness that had bloomed from that first kitchen glance. Flour-dusted hands, no pretense. She'd challenged his hatred for the fake, pulling him toward something raw, trust forged in betrayal's fire. Yet the cost loomed, exposure of his empire's seams, a sacrifice to protect her world from bleeding into his. Sophia's pulse thrummed, the push-pull tearing deeper. Her ethics, rooted in Nona's honest legacy, clashed with the autonomy slipping away in his shadow. Marco's confession had shattered the makeshift family at the trattoria, his debts a human fracture in the logistics of loyalty. But Luca's vow, no harm to the real, mirrored her own, tempting a future where pasta and power intertwined. "If it's a trap, we walk in blind," she said, voice steady over the engine's growl. "What's the play? Burn the ledgers or burn the bridge?" "Both," Luca replied, short and taut, as the warehouse loomed. A hulking beast of corrugated steel and chain link, its loading docks scarred by years of illicit hauls. The air thickened with the tang of oil-slick water and distant foghorns, the river lapping like a conspirator. They parked in the shadow of a semi-trailer, Vito and 2 guards fanning out, earpieces hissing rotations. Flank east, watch the tunnels. No storm this time, just the natural hum of generators and the creak of gulls wheeling overhead. The side door yielded to a rusted keypad, code from Marco's relayed fob, a final thread of his redemption. Inside, the warehouse echoed hollow, vast and dim. Sodium lights buzzing overhead like trapped insects, casting pools on stacked pallets of forgotten crates. The scent of damp wood and mold clung heavy, undercut by the metallic bite of fresh printer ink from a table in the center. Ledgers splayed open, pages yellowed with entries tying Nona's old shipments to Rossi crew guns, weights off just enough for hidden compartments. Shadows stirred at the far end. A 6 figures, East Side boss at the fore. A wiry man in a threadbare coat, flanked by muscle with hands hovering near concealed holsters. "Moretti," the boss called, voice echoing off the rafters, oily with false civility. "Brought the pasta girl? Leverage walks on 2 legs." His laugh grated, but Luca stepped forward, Sophia at his side, her chin lifted in defiance. No graphic standoff, just the tension coiling, air electric as a jammed exit. "You've got the ledgers," Luca said, gesturing to the table, his tone even, code restraining the storm within. "Burn them. Roots, stay mine. Your crew gets a clean out, no tails." The boss smirked, but Vito's signal crackled. Perimeter breach, tunnels flooding from river valves, diversion. Human sabotage, valves turned by turncoats, the warehouse floor slicking with seepage from below, the river's pressure turning the ground hazardous. Sophia's eyes scanned the shadows, spotting the inconsistency. A guard's averted gaze, the subtle tap of a burner phone in his pocket. "It's not just roots," she said, stepping into the light, voice cutting the hum. "Marco's debts, your pressure. Family back home, threats, end it, or Nona's becomes ground zero." The boss faltered, behavioral tell cracking his facade. A glance to his men, the realization that exposure loomed larger than gain. Chaos erupted, not with bullets, but a race against the rising water gurgling from grates, the environment shifting as valves groaned open wider, pallets floating like unstable rafts. Luca lunged for the ledgers, Vito tackling the hesitant guard, whose phone spilled texts confessing the full betrayal. Rossi boss's orders to flood the site. Trap them in the collapse. Sophia grabbed a flare from a safety kit, igniting it to signal the convoy outside, the red glow piercing the dim like a vow fulfilled. Guards clashed in controlled grapples, no blood spilled, just the thud of falls and the splash of water climbing ankles to knees. Luca shoved the ledgers into a crate, dousing it with accelerant from a nearby drum, the flames roaring up as the boss backed toward the exit, his crew scattering into the tunnels, It's over, Luca growled, arm around Sophia as they waded toward the door, water churning cold and insistent. Your play failed. Ledgers gone, routes sealed. The boss vanished into the shadows, but victory bit deep. Exposure of the East Side's fractures. A cost in lost alliances and the warehouse's ruin. Sirens wailing distant as city crews responded to the accident. They burst into daylight, the convoy idling, soaked but unbroken, the river's current now a retreating threat. Vito secured the perimeter, the infiltrator's phone yielding final proofs, shipping manifests scrubbed, Marco's family debts anonymously cleared by Luca's quiet channels. No easy triumph. The Rossi crew would regroup, institutional limits in law and logistics leaving loose ends. But the organized threat shattered for now. In the penthouse safe house later, high above the Gold Coast's glittering sprawl, the air hummed with the soft whir of dehumidifiers chasing away the night's damp. Sophia stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city a mosaic below, while Luca poured espresso from a sleek machine, the rich aroma grounding the haze. His suit jacket hung discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing the scars of old battles, reminders of losses that shaped his code. You saved more than ledgers, he said, handing her the cup, his fingers brushing hers in a touch that lingered, electric with unspoken pledge. Fell for you that first sight, pasta in your hands, real as the river. Now, you're my future, protection, trust, no fakes between us. Possessiveness yielded to partnership, his world opening to hers. Nona's rebuilt, shipments rerouted clean, a family chosen in the fire. Sophia sipped, the bitterness yielding to warmth, her independence intact but woven with his loyalty. The adventure's cost, Marco's exile, the trattoria's temporary shudder, paled against the treasure. Not spoils of power, but this bond, loyalty outlasting the shadows, memories of flower and flames forging a legacy stronger than any empire. As dusk painted the skyline, she leaned into him, the hum of the city fading to a promise. Subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales of loyalty, danger, and found family. See you in the next story.